Welcome back to Magic Hour Podcast, everyone. I'm your host, Taylor Page.
And I'm Claire. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone.
The season 2 finale. My goodness. How far has the show come in this year? I feel like this year we really found our flow, our vibe. I'm just so grateful for everything this year.
I know. I can't believe that we're rounding out season two. And season two was even bigger than season one because we started in like March for season one. So we had a full year for season two. And it's so cute and fun to think about us in those early days and how we just had no idea what we were embarking on. But we did it anyway and found our way as we did it. And now to be here and just feeling so in flow and feeling so much love from our community and these listeners, all of you guys out there. It's just such a joy to be a part of this.
Yeah, absolutely. Just so grateful. And at time of recording, Spotify Wrap just came out today. So Claire and I have been like gushing over that. And it's just so sweet because I know we say this all the time of it feels like we're recording on an island over here, but then there's actually signs of life in the outside world that we're being heard. And it's just so sweet, all of you guys like tagging us in your stories and sharing how much you listen to the pod. And 1.9 million minutes of Magic Hour have been listened to on Spotify this year, which is just so cool. And we are just so grateful to the hummingbirds and all of your support.
It's just incredible. I mean, it does just feel like Taylor and I are just hanging out when we do this, because this is basically how we are when we hang out. Like, we just talk about deep stuff and magic and get into it with each other. But it's just so incredible to know that it is in your lives in such a deep way. And now I've bumped into a few of you in the wild, and it's just so amazing. We're so grateful for you all.
I know. And I've been reflecting a lot on the season 1 finale and how different I feel for the season 2 finale. And like for the season 1 finale, I was burnt out. I had COVID for like 3 weeks. I completely changed all of my offerings. Like everything was just a major transitionary moment. And if we revisit our intentions that we set, which, we talked about in the season 1 finale, instead of setting super controlling resolutions like, I will make this amount of money and I will have this year, we set intention words that we could be on the vibration of and see what that would unfold into in our life and how it wanted to manifest. And my 2 words were spaciousness and health. Those were the 2 words that I really needed to embrace. And I've been revisiting that this year. And it's absolutely insane because there has been more spaciousness and like less go, go, go than ever. And I said this in Sitting with Spirit for 246. I believe that sometimes when you integrate spaciousness and your nervous system doesn't feel safe to hold it, it literally feels like you're dying. And it was an adjustment. Like it felt so unsafe to be in spaciousness. Like I was anxious. My heart was racing. I kept trying to fill the space with more stuff. And every time I did that, my eye thing would come back, my autoimmune. And so this year, really, I've committed to the spaciousness. It hasn't always been comfortable, but it's been so rewarding. And I've committed to taking care of my health. And it's just so cool to look back and see like that's really what I needed at that time.
Yeah, and to see that by putting that intention out, you were able to really follow it through, which is such a huge thing too. Because I think sometimes we know, like, I need to make a shift, but it can be hard to implement it. And I think when we really are intentional about it, it sets it in motion for ourselves and helps us stay accountable of like, hey, I wanted to create spaciousness. So am I doing that or am I filling my schedule to the brink? And, I feel that too. It's so uncomfortable. Like if I have a day off and I don't have anything to do with it, because it gives me space to look at some of the stuff that I'm avoiding with all the other things. And so it's usually very uncomfortable and brings up a lot of emotion. But always I find myself on the other side of it after that time because I think what I needed was the space to process and face it. And so it's just so important to have that in your life. Like busy is great, but there also needs to be time for space.
Yeah, I was talking to this with my mentees. I was like, take the amount of silence that you think you need in your mediumship and intuitive development and triple it. Triple it. We need so much more silence and spaciousness than we realize. And what's really interesting is that just even telling people what my intention was for the year because, we're in a very awake, conscious community. We're all talking to each other about this like inner work that we're doing and all of these things. And people are like, my word for the year is career growth. My word for the year is, adventure, whatever it is. Like all of these active words are kind of what we veer more to on a societal level. And I remember there were certain people and they're like, what's your intention for the year? What's your goal for the year? And I said, spaciousness. I remember just registering in them a little bit of surprise where it's just like, that's the goal of what you want more of, spaciousness. And I think we don't prioritize spaciousness. We don't think about spaciousness. It comes back to that Eileen Davies quote of silence is to the soul what food is to the body. I always say this, are talking to the universe more than we listen. And if we have no room for spaciousness and silence, again, triple it. Do what your mind says you need to do and triple it. And like your whole life will change. When I tell you the amount of clarity and downloads and what's being set up for me in 2026 because of this year of spaciousness in 2025, it is so powerful.
It's so true, and I felt similarly to you, and so also kind of put that intention in, and 2024, it must have been, was packed and hectic for me, and I had to say no to some things, and it's always hard to do that. And by doing that, I feel like I created more space for my creativity. And this year I've really been able to give more to that because I said no to some other things that I felt like I had to do. So I think that's so huge too. Trusting that you will be held even when you say no or even when you take a step back and create that space. I think we feel if we can control it all, it'll go our way. But then we're not receiving what the universe wants to guide us to.
Yeah, we're so fixed and rigid that we can't be led in to our highest timeline. What were your words, Claire? Were they nature and creativity? I'm trying to remember what yours were.
Yeah, I think so. Because I was feeling such a call to be in nature and also feeling cut off from my creativity. And I feel like I did a pretty good job with both. I definitely did a good job with my creativity. I had this big project that was building in 2019 and early 2020 that fell apart and was really hard to let go of. And I just couldn't find the next step. And I really think that idea of spaciousness helped me create space for it, and to discover it. I feel so excited and fulfilled in that area of my life for the first time in a long time. So that's cool to see. And I definitely got to spend some good time in nature. I went to Hawaii and I went to Big Sur. We went to Idlewild and went on that magical, rainy, foggy hike. That was epic.
I know. And it's kind of cool because I remembered my word of spaciousness, but I forgot my word of health. But then naturally, Ari showed me this new gym in our area and I joined it and I've been getting in shape. And the gym has all these wellness things like red light therapy. And I've been getting some lymphatic drainage work done, which has really helped my periods. And so I think it's really interesting too, because sometimes when you have an intention word, you set it and forget it. And then you realize, like, oh my gosh, towards the end of the year, wow, I really did make progress with that.
Yeah, which is such an exciting thing about it too. I think sometimes the new year can be loaded with a lot of like, what have I accomplished and what do I need? It can just be like a little bit heavy and tricky. But I also think it can be like a beautiful check in moment to just recenter on your intentions without the pressure of like, I failed or I passed, but just like a nice recentering moment to see like, okay, this was what I really hoped to bring in. How did it all pan out? And probably more than you realize, you integrated that thing or those things. I think usually at the end, when I look back, I'm like, you did that. Good for you.
So true. And I'm glad you said that because I think there's a lot of subtle connotations within this work of like pass versus fail, worthiness, getting our manifestations as signs that we're doing a good job. Like we project the consciousness of grade school onto the universe, like, okay, I'm not a fourth grader anymore. I'm a fifth grader now. And we think of the year like that. Like, okay, I'm not 2025 me, I'm 2026 me. But it's like some planets take 12 years to make their whole way around the zodiac and complete a full cycle. It's like, I think these are really good check in points, like you said, but they're not a pass or fail from the universe. That's why I love the wheel of the year, because it's a wheel, it's not a line. And one season informs the next in a powerful way. And they're all just check in points along the spectrum of light to dark. And we're in the dark part of the year. Like I was saying in 246, sitting with spirit, it's like the shadow can come up and it can be really challenging during the holidays, even though it's a time that's supposed to be quote unquote so light filled. So just holding space and also not comparing your progress to anybody else. It's like harder than ever to do that in this social media era. But just remember, and I say this as a yearly reminder, I'm sure I've said this sometime on season one. As an intuitive, I sit with people who from the outside look like their whole life is amazing and perfect. And I feel the actual truth of what's happening. And not one person in this thing we call life is absolved from some sort of healing journey, some sort of painful journey, whether they talk about it publicly or not. And I was just thinking about this today because I've been doing a lot of my astrology and ancestors reading type, where I look at your birth chart and look at the themes of, ancestral healing and cycle breaking, then talk to your ancestors. And every single person has a Chiron placement. And Chiron is our inner wound where we're wounded. It can usually be an inherited wound, and it's what we heal in ourselves so that we can heal the world. And I was thinking about this today, how nobody's absolved from having Chiron somewhere in their chart. And I think sometimes we try to run from our Chiron and we try to just be like, no, I don't deserve this. I'm entitled to a different experience, whatever that script is. But I actually think Chiron points to where we can be leaders for people that are less healed around us. And sometimes it's like, we just have to come to acceptance. And I'm not even talking about people who have been victimized by intense trauma. That's like a whole other ball of wax. But I'm just talking about on our healing journey. And, forgiveness is a timeline that is unique to everybody's circumstances. But like I was saying, everyone has a wound somewhere in their chart. And if we can embrace that head on as our superpower, and where we have healed ourselves to a level that we can be in leadership for people where this is their blind spot, instead of feeling resentful and constantly triggered by people not showing up in a way that continues to trigger our wound, relating to it in a way of, oh, this is a chance for me to be a leader and an expert in this particular area. And my Chiron is in Cancer in the fourth house. And that's a very karmic Chiron placement to have around family and feeling unseen in family, feeling emotional wounds within the family, feeling not supported in different ways. And if I stay in my victim consciousness about that, of like, this is my Chiron and everyone keeps disappointing me and everybody keeps letting me down and nobody's seeing me and this is what it is, I lose the opportunity to be the healer and say, okay, I clearly have to be the one to demonstrate healed Chiron and Cancer in the fourth. I clearly have to be the one to not necessarily like teach or fix, because I don't think that's my job, but live it and embody it and model it so that people can either join me there or respect my boundaries. And so for some people, their Chiron is around money wounds. For other people, their Chiron is around relationships and love, creativity and expression, friends and community. It's like, where is that showing up for you? And instead of being in the dead end frequency of victim mode, where it's like, this is always happening to me, how can that actually be flipped to your biggest superpower and how you can be an example? And I think when we run from our healing journey or feel frustrated or let down by it, we're missing where we really can be a leader because of our expanded consciousness, and also experience of pain in that area makes us the exact people that need to be leaders in that space.
Wow. I loved everything you just said. That was so well put and such a beautiful reframe of those things that trigger us. And interesting because I feel like, of course, this is like something that's kind of shifted for me, or like I'm looking at it in a different way. And one thing I loved that you said at the beginning was, and I'll probably butcher it now, but that our wound is our opportunity to heal. When we heal our wound, we can help heal that in the world. And I think when we think of it like that, as if we're almost like here in this existence as a warrior to heal that wound in like the full consciousness of humanity. And our piece is healing it in ourselves, which then helps heal it in the greater good, the greater consciousness. And in that way, we aren't a victim. It's an opportunity to help the world by helping ourselves. And that feels kind of like a call to arms or like a noble endeavor. When we get triggered, it's so easy to fall into the pain and the victimhood and the frustration. I mean, I certainly do. And I can feel like this always happens to me, or why me, or this is so unfair. And sometimes we just have to feel that way. But lately, I've been trying to shift it into when I'm triggered, this is an opportunity to see that I still have some healing work to do around this wound. And how can this trigger help shine that light on it so that I can see, oh, I still don't fully feel worthy, or I still feel worried that people are going to show up for me. And seeing people show up for someone else makes me feel, oh no, that might not happen for me. So there's still deeper healing to do here. And instead of letting that trigger cave me into the pain of it, can it instead be this opportunity to deepen my healing and expand even further? And I know we've all seen, I mean, you, for me, and for so many people, Taylor, are such a beautiful example of leading and being an example. When we've gone through difficult things and we have moved through them in a powerful way and we're open and honest and vulnerable about it, it is an invitation to other people to get to do it. It's an example. It's a comfort to know, like, you also struggle. You also have this difficult thing that you're facing, but we can all do it and we can show each other how possible it is.
Yes, and thank you. And I think, the language that we use is so important. And the way that we talk about, and I'm just harping on Chiron because it's been coming up a lot in my readings, but I think it's important too because in the astrology world, we can sometimes be like, well, this is in my chart in this way, and that means that this is my story for the rest of my life. But I think instead of looking at Chiron as where we're constantly going to be disappointed or having our feelings hurt or being triggered, seeing it as an opportunity for where our greatest superpower can be because of our lived experience and seeing where we can take up the mantle of leadership and be an example of more healthy ways to relate to that wound, just talking about it that way and looking at it in that way, every time the trigger comes up, you realize, oh, this is an opportunity for my leadership, not a thing that's coming up over and over again to hurt me.
Yeah, exactly. It is such a shift to think about it that way. It's really been something that I've been thinking about this past week of like every time that happens, seeing it as a good thing, seeing it as the universe helping me to heal. And like when we're not ready or when we're still struggling with it, it feels like it drags us back down. Sometimes I feel like it makes it feel worse. But I think it really is an opportunity of the universe wanting this to be healed. I know for me and my personal wounding, I feel like it has a lot to do with being a woman in this world and not feeling appreciated or seen or cherished in the way that of course, I want to be as a human being. And I know that there are many women who feel that way. And in the past, probably, felt worse in that way. What a beautiful opportunity. Like, of course, what a high calling to heal that wound collectively by me being able to do that work with myself. Like, it's such a beautiful reframe. I think that might be one of my words for the new year is opportunity.
That's what I was going to ask you. Okay. So 2026, what do you mean by opportunity?
Well, one of the words I was going to go with was optimism. And I think maybe optimism and opportunity for me feel like hand in hand in this way of almost seeing the things that come into my life as an opportunity to expand and to feel optimistic about the possibilities that these challenges create for me. Like I can shift in an even more expanded way through this struggle, through this hardship. These last couple years have been hard for me, and I've been doing deep emotional work with my therapist, and shout out to Rachel. And I know I've expanded. I know I'm a more grounded person. I know that this wound, while also still very open and raw for me, is healing. And so, yeah, I think opportunity in that way of just looking at life as the opportunities that it is to expand and connect and become the most aligned version of self.
Yes, that's so powerful. And I think every test and trigger is an opportunity for up level and relating to things in a more powerful way. So I love that talking about language mattering and shifting it. Imagine if instead of saying test and triggers, we called them opportunities. I think that would like change everything.
Yeah, it's like I'm sure we've mentioned this before, but instead of thinking that it's happening to me, thinking that it's happening for me, is another way to look at that. And how powerful we are, even in that small instance of like choosing to look at it in another way. This isn't a test, it's an opportunity.
I'm not quite sure what my word is, but I know so the idea of having kids or not has been coming up a lot for me. And I really genuinely do not know. And it's scary that I don't know because I always feel sure about everything. I am just a very sure person of like, this is the way I should go or not. And especially with kids, I think that there's no way that that idea of like a full body yes or no can really apply because it's so layered and there's like pros and cons of both sides. So, where I've been meeting myself is no matter what I choose, all will be well. No matter what I choose, I have my back and I will be happy. I'm not in this place where I'm like, I'll never have kids. And I'm not in this place where I'm like, I need kids or I won't be happy. I'm genuinely, I almost see it as like this tennis player in ready position for wherever the serve comes. And I don't know what the word, I guess readiness is my word for 2026, where I just am meeting the present moment with complete trust in myself to follow where I'm being led and I'm ready for it. And I think ready and trust are like my two words for 2026, where I literally see myself in ready position. And I'm like, if I have kids and all of these fearful things with like grief of my mom coming up and losing my identity and changing my marriage and all the things that come along with that huge death and rebirth, I'm in ready position and I trust that I'll meet that just like I have every struggle I ever have been faced with in my life. And if it doesn't happen and I get thrown a different tennis ball and I'm being taken to a different direction of the tennis court, I'm ready and I trust that. And so I feel like my energetic state for 2026 is like present moment readiness.
I love that. And I feel like the work you've done in this past year has prepared you in that way. You gave yourself the spaciousness to really get centered and grounded. And now, yeah, I love that. And such a beautiful way to think about the journey of motherhood. Cause it's so funny lately, I've been really thinking about it. And, I'm not in a relationship and I'm at a certain age where, probably the opportunities are not as big as maybe they once were. And I've always felt, or not always, but lately I felt like good. I don't need kids, but I don't know. Recently I felt a little tenderness around it, but I think it's so true that either experience will be rich and full and also have moments of sadness, I'm sure, or, longing for the other situation. And I think accepting that, knowing that, yeah, I probably will have a day where if I have kids, I might be like, man, I wish I was footloose and fancy free right now. And there'll be days if you don't have kids where you're like, God, I would love to just be cuddled up with my kid right now or seeing them experience the world. So just trusting in the flow of what's right and being ready for it, like that can apply to everything we do. What a great way to face the unknown.
Yeah. And I think that it's a result of all the nervous system work. Like spaciousness creates nervous system regulation so that you can just be in trust and presence and readiness. Whereas if your nervous system is dysregulated, you're like frantic and you're trying to control and you're trying to plan. And that takes you out of readiness and adaptability for co creating in the present moment. So I think that's what feels authentic to me right now is like, for the past few years, I've been so all about like achievement and growing my business and starting Magic Hour and doing all of these things. And now I'm just flowing in the present moment. And that feels really good to me.
I love that. How exciting.
Thank you. I wanted to talk really briefly about this book that I'm reading called Voices in the Dark. I think it might be a bit of a rare text. It's a mediumship book from another UK spiritualist medium who has a really rare gift of physical mediumship. So, physical mediumship is the like ectoplasm stuff Claire and I talked about on 203, but it also is any physical phenomenon that everyone in the room can see or experience. So, it's not just the medium being like, I see a man in the corner. It's like everyone being able to see a man in the corner. So for him, his unique gift is disembodied voices that everybody can hear. So basically he would like go to the movies and people would tell him to like shut up and be quiet, but it wasn't him. It was like whispering voices around him. So I'm like not super deep in the book yet, but it's so interesting. And I just want to tell one story from it. This medium's name is Leslie Flint, and the book is Voices in the Dark, My Life as a Medium. He's like an amazing writer, and it's just so interesting. He grew up right around World War I era and just what England was like at that time. And he grew up in St. Albans, and I've been to St. Albans. So it was just a really cool story. But there's something very common in his story about coming in with his mediumship gifts online, them being discouraged, him being afraid of them, and then spirit persisting to contact him until he embraces them and that feeling pesky and like he didn't want that. And I feel like unless you were raised with a parent who's a medium, like Gordon Higginson was, unless you have a parent that's fostering that in you and teaching you, when you're in this society, you're going to be gaslit out of your gifts. And there's a certain level of spirit being so persistent until you get the message. And that was my experience with, feeling super plagued by spirit and not understanding. That was Mavis Patilla's story. So there's just so many mediums who have had that experience. So this medium, Leslie Flynn, and I also want to say it's interesting to me how themes of death and the afterlife also follow these people through. Like Mavis Patilla was on her deathbed for a lot of her early life. I was in a play where the main actress passed away and it was all about death and there was so much happening that way. And then, Leslie Flynn got in that time, the economy wasn't super great in England, like World War I, World War II. And he got a job as someone who tended to graves. And so he was working in graveyards. So it's interesting too, how like that theme of death and the other side is so pervasive through our lives. So basically, at that time, he was going to this spiritualist church and circle. And what's really interesting is like around that time when like spiritualism was really starting to take root in the UK and just starting to come over to the US, people would do seances where they would have these elaborate systems where they'd set up raps, like knocking on tables and say, build the power until like knocks could be heard. And the number of knocks corresponded to an alphabet letter. And they would painstakingly, with a lot of time, write messages. This is what they were doing before freaking TikTok. You know what I mean? We're so distracted. Like we would never have the patience for that. But back then, this was hype and like the height of entertainment. And honestly, I would still love to do it. I don't know if I would have patience for freaking 26 taps for the letter Z.
It's a lot of taps.
It's a lot of taps. So he was kind of like running from it. And part of this, he came from kind of like a poor background, but then because he was such a good medium, he got invited into like an upper class family's mediumship circle. And then he kind of made a fool of himself and was kind of immature. He was only 17 in the circle and was like laughing when this lady was in trance. He got kicked out of the circle. So that day, he's like, okay, I'm done. I'm done with mediumship. I'm done with life after death. I'm done with all of this. A letter comes to his house and he's like, who could possibly have sent me this letter? Addressed from a medium in Munich who got his address and his name from that system of rapping, sent it to him from Germany and said, I have your guide here saying, don't give up on mediumship. You need to keep doing it. And that like tripped him out. In his head, he was like, why would someone play like an elaborate prank on me? And they're all the way in Germany. They can't even see my face. How did they even know my name and address? All of the details. And back then, mediums would get details like that. There's still a little bit of remnants of it. Like with Eileen Davies at AFC, she would get like addresses and stuff. Like they used to train that way. It was a little different. And I feel like each generation of mediums have different gifts. But basically, Spirit continued to like hound him until he said yes to do it. And I thought that was really funny because I think that is really common for a lot of people. And a lot of people feel really scared of the spirit world and they're like running from it. And that was certainly my experience. I just found it to be so interesting in his story how Spirit did not stop until he was like, I will do this.
It honestly ties so well into what we were just talking about. Like, talk about opportunity. Like, the universe keeps giving you guys these opportunities of like, hey, you're connected to this. And even when we run from them and think like, I don't want this, this isn't right, it's like they'll keep trying to get us that message until we finally listen and embrace it. And then so amazing what was on the other side of it for all of these people, including you, you know?
Yeah. Thank you. And there was also a really interesting part. So he wanted to go to art school and he came from nothing and kind of a really tragic backstory. And he had this one art teacher in school who like really supported him and was like, go to art school, like you're good enough. And then he had to drop out of school, I think at 15 to start working to support him and his grandma who he lived with because both of his parents were not in the picture. And one day he was working at his grave and he got intuitively pulled. He was like, you know what? I have time and there's a grave over there that's been super neglected. Let me just go clean it. And I feel called to go there. And he cleans up that grave and it's the art teacher's grave. He didn't know the art teacher had passed. And then later that night, he went to the spiritualist church and the medium demonstrating said, hey, you in the back. He was kind of like hiding in the back because he was still new to this world and not sure what he wanted to do with it. They're like, we have a art teacher here for you named Mr. Lewis, who's thanking you for cleaning up his grave and telling you that you're meant to do this work. And he was so taken aback that I'm pretty sure he like fled and he didn't go back for a really long time. And he was like, what is happening? But he knew he's like, that's something no one could have known. I was alone at the grave.
My God, that's so crazy. And no wonder he ran. I would have run too.
I know. These books that are tied to these mediums in the UK around this time period are so, so interesting. So I'll keep sharing them with you guys and I'll keep sharing the stories from them. But I think I'm like 100 pages into this book and it's really good.
So cool. And so cool to see how it's been happening for so long. It's not a new thing.
Yeah, for sure. So, before we go into the listener questions for the episode, I just wanted to give a couple little shout outs and some housekeeping things. So, right now, I'm running my biggest sale of the year on workshops and meditations. Basically, this is our winter solstice sale. It's going to go through December 21st. And if you've been eyeing my mentorship program, Becoming the Oracle, I have a bundle that includes the Be Your Own Angelic Intuitive Workshop and the Healing the Witch Wound workshop, plus 3 angelic guided meditations, including New Year manifestations, honoring your unique frequency, and Meet Your Angels meditation. And this whole bundle is on sale right now for $312, which is $177 off. So if you have been wanting to do the mentorship or just do those prerequisites for the mentorship, this is the biggest discounted rate they will ever be. Plus, I threw in 3 guided meditations. So do not wait for that. There's also a second bundle, which is the Be Your Own Angelic Intuitive Workshop and the Working with Your Angels to Attract a Soulmate Connection Workshop. And the 3 meditations with that one is our Healing Karmic Relationship Patterns, the Venus Codes meditations, and the cord cutting meditations. And that's the same price, $312. So if you have been eyeing the workshops, do not wait. You can go to angelsandamethyst.com and find everything there. You don't need a code for that one. It's just discounted as a bundle. And then the code Hummingbird Holiday also gives $66 off if you want to buy any 3-part workshop individually, which is $33 more than any other code I do. I only do one big sale a year. This is it. This is her. So angelsandamethyst.com. You have until December 21st. Code Hummingbird Holiday for $66 off. Those bundles are just so juicy. So do not wait. If your word is magic or intuition or anything like that for 2026, do not wait because I think these are really special offerings and people really report being taken to the next level from them and how powerful they are. And then the other thing is just a reminder that our giveaway at 288 5-star reviews is going to have 3 winners. So we're just waiting for 288 on Apple Podcasts. One person will will win a reading with me, and 2 of you will win any 3-part workshop of your choice. And if you've done all the 3-part workshops, you will get your entry to the mediumship workshop that I'm going to be offering in 2026. So do not sleep on all of these things. There's so much magic to be had. And those are all of my announcements.
So much exciting stuff. I love that.
Yes, exactly. So let's go into some listener questions.
Okay. This is a question from Petra. Hi, Taylor and Claire. Thank you so much for a truly magical podcast. It means a lot to me. I'm a 60-year young girl from Sweden, and I've been wondering about something since I was about 6 years old and realized that I was born at the wrong time and place. Back then, I just accepted the fact and went on with my life. But from time to time, I get this deep and strong feeling of grief and longing for home. Something deep inside of me says, I just want to go home. Where this home is, I do not know, but I strongly feel that it is in another time. Sometimes it feels like the 1920s, but there is also a deep sense of even further back, like 1700s or so. My question is, are we able to feel other timelines so strongly even when we can't remember or see our existences in these timelines? Or do I just have an overactive imagination? And the fact that our past, present, future lives are all happening at once, which I do believe in a way, is a bit overwhelming and requires some deeper explaining, please. I would really like to hear your thoughts regarding this, Petra.
Yeah, this is a really interesting question. And what Petra is referencing is that I really do believe that everything is happening at once and there's no separation of time and space and matter, but our bodies are the separation. So basically, what I say is our bodies are bookmarks for consciousness. So, in our perception of time in a physical body where the bookmark is, time is linear. When we're not in a body, we're not restricted by space or time. So, it's quantum. That's basically the easiest way I can explain it. So, when we talk about past lives, in relation to the time linearly that we are in this physical body, then yeah, it would be in the past. But while we're in spirit, it's like all oneness, basically what I get. Like spirits aren't in 2025 only. Like they're not restricted. It's really hard to wrap your mind around. So yeah, I do believe that there can be parts of us that see films or movies or things set in other times and have this deep longing for it, or can even have deja vu. I know we even talk about that on a listener question. I will caution though that sometimes there can be grass is greener thinking when we look at that and we don't see the shadow sides of like dysentery and all of these like crazy things that they were dealing with back then. But yeah, my deep feeling about this is that nothing that we feel or experience is an accident. And if you have a strong, recurring emotional tie to something, whether it's feeling tied to a different time period or a longing for XYZ thing, I think that that is coming up for a reason. And I would also maybe explore past life regression. There might be ways that your guides are getting your attention to look at some past life stuff or to do some exploring in that way and see what comes up for you. But I would also go a little deeper with themes around home, fitting in, security, feeling seen and understood, some deeper inner child stuff, and ask yourself, have I always felt at home or like I fit in or like my family of origin makes sense to me? And also, what have my parents' experiences been with that? Is there a way that they maybe feel like a fish out of water? Because sometimes and I'm not saying this is the case for her, but sometimes we can long for things and it's keeping us out of what's not being related to right here, right now. So there might be ways that that longing for another time is symbolic to your psyche of what needs it thinks that other time would meet, or things like that could even be tied epigenetically to ancestors who never really felt like they fit in, or there just might be themes there that this emotional experience of longing for another time is bringing up in you. I think there's something really rich there to explore. And I would sit with your angels and ask about it. I would maybe do a past life regression if you feel called to it. There just might be some really fertile information. But then also, the other thing is, have you noticed this pattern of longing to be somewhere else or someone else Has that ever come up for your inner child before, where it's like, if I was just here, I would be happy? Or if I was here, I'd feel at home? Has that sense of black sheep energy or outsider energy or longing for something else been a protector for you in any other way? And how might that be coming up in this way now? So I think there's no one right answer, but I invite you to explore those rhetorical questions and see where they connect for you.
Yeah, I love that because I think, regardless of if we have had what you're talking about, these like past life experiences, I think we are meant to be here now. Like we've chosen to be here in this body, in this timeline, as well as having chosen to be in that timeline. And so those memories or those longings, I think, are an invitation to explore yourself in this human experience deeper. Like, what does that feeling look like for you now? And how can it help you anchor more deeply into your authenticity on this journey, on this timeline? Exploring that, I definitely feel so deeply. I'm like, I used to live on a tropical island for sure. I feel such a deep longing for that and call like that is home to me, even though I grew up in Denver where there is no ocean. But I think it's been kind of an exciting thing to explore for me of like, oh, my heart calls for that. And how can I let that lead me? And how can I explore that in this timeline experience and let that inform me versus feeling like I should be there? Because where I should be is definitely here right now. I think that's why I'm here right now.
Yeah, I like that perspective of we're here for a reason in this time, but there's something that your psyche is repeatedly getting your attention with those past timelines. And I think that's just fertile ground and that nothing happens accidentally, especially when it's recurring. And I think there might be some deep, rich exploration there. And I would even maybe try some automatic writing. Like when you long for that time, just start to describe what you're feeling and opening up to that time period and just starting to explore it and flesh it out and tease it out a little bit through writing. And you might even slip into channeled writing in that space.
I love that. I want to hear how this all goes, Petra.
Yeah, let us know.
Yes. Okay, should we jump to another?
Yes.
Okay, great. This is a question from Marcella. Hello, Magic Hour team. Taylor has talked in great detail about red flags and things to look for when going to a psychic medium. I recently followed a couple of intuitive pings and found myself sitting with a medium for my first ever mediumship reading. Overall, it was an amazing experience. They gave plenty of evidence and described my grandma's personality to a T. My grandma was not a nice lady, so if she came through as rainbows and butterflies, I definitely would not have believed it. It was a very powerful and profound experience. I got chills throughout the session, and I was left with a deep feeling of trust in the universe. My question is if I should go back to this same medium for future readings. Taylor has spoken about how it can be difficult to read for people whose story, life she knows about. So should I go to a different medium to ensure that our past conversations / their opinions of me don't cloud the next reading? Any thoughts or insights would be much appreciated. Kindly and with bright yellow energy, Marcella.
This is such a good question, Marcella. And you're right. I've talked so much about red flags, but I haven't really talked very much about what to do when you find someone who you really click with and who does a good job. And the short answer is no, you can definitely go back to that person. I think where it can get a little bit complicated has to do with the development level of the intuitive or the medium. So, the more you know about someone, the harder it is to read for them. And this has been something I talk about a lot with my mentees. And some readers even take notes on their clients and have them to brush up on so that when they reconnect, they can remember. And that is not my style at all. I want to know nothing so that my imagination and my mind doesn't get in the way and I can actually just be a clear channel for what wants to come through. That being said, I have clients that come back to me all the time, and it's okay. First of all, a lot of full time mediums don't remember their sessions because we are sitting with a lot of people all the time. I literally don't even remember who I read for 2 days ago. So there is that. But if you go to somebody and they're really good and they resonate, they'll either bring through a new person or a different aspect of your grandma. So you can definitely go back. I would recommend maybe giving it a little time, especially for intuitive readings. For intuitive readings, if you get a really good intuitive reading and you click with the reader, but then you come back and nothing's really changed and you're asking the same questions, that's where it can be a little clouded because of what they know from you. And maybe you haven't integrated what came through in the first reading. But I think, especially for mediumship, different people can come through and different evidence can come through. And that's happened for me in my readings. So, yeah, I think there's no problem with returning to the same person. On the reader's side, it's important for their development, though, that they don't get into the loop of remembering, oh, I connected with her grandma and her grandma wasn't really nice and this and that. Then that could be on their development level where that gets them tripped up. But somebody who's really professional in this space should not have a problem with that. And that's why, even in practice circles, like in my mentorship container, I told my mentees, like, I don't want you guys to get close with each other until after this container, because as soon as you find out about this person, that they're a pro athlete, every message that they bring through is about that. As soon as you find out this person is an artist, everything is about an easel and paint and this and that, because it's what the imagination knows and the neat bow that the imagination is trying to create a story around that person. So it's more advanced for someone to know things about you and still be able to have an open, clear link. But I think any professional in this space who's evidential won't have a problem with that. But as you're practicing, I think it's really important to, if you are practicing on the same people, and now this is going into people on their development journey, not people getting readings, but for people on your development journey, ask for information that you couldn't have known or that surprises you about the person that you're reading for. And that's how you'll get out of that rut of bringing through the same messages for the same people all the time. Like, even being part of a mediumship circle, we are reading for each other and demonstrating for each other all the time. And it's the same people all the time. And you can get into these ruts of just like the same type of messages and the same three spirits coming through every single time. And that's why on the development level, it's really important to be like, no, I want something that surprises me. I want someone that I've never connected with. I want something I couldn't have known. And the mind is just going to consistently try to filter through what it already knows about the people.
That's so interesting. It makes sense too, though, because it's like maybe fragile isn't the right word, but it's such a delicate channel, it seems. And it's literally going through your psyche and your mind. So the more cluttered and full your mind is with other things, or like you even talk about if you're not feeling well, you can't do it. So yeah, the more full of ideas of this person already, the harder it will probably be to sense what isn't from your mind and what is from the connection. So that makes sense. Like you said, for Marcella, it's like, I think if you're going back and wanting the same information about the same person, then you could maybe get stuck. But if you're still continuing that connection where you're not giving this reader a bunch of information about the rest of your line or the rest of the people you want to connect with, and just continue to let it lead you. And maybe you'll hit a point where you feel like, okay, I've gotten as much as I can from this person. I think that's a natural thing that happens all the time for us and can be kind of tricky. Like, I've run my course with this teacher, or I've run my course with this way of thinking. Like, I got everything I needed to out of it. And then it's okay to shift to someone else. But it sounds like you found someone really great and that there's no reason not to continue to pursue it until you feel like, okay, we've done it, you know?
Yeah, I think like where the danger lies, and this is to people who are developing mediums and also just people working in the space, is say Marcella goes back to that medium and someone who was not very nice comes through again, but it's actually an uncle. But because this medium knew, oh, her grandma's like that, she's like, oh, your grandma's back. And when that happens from a spirit world perspective, the spirit world's like, darn, because I'm here and I want to connect. But now the grandma will actually come through and replace the uncle and step into place so that they can talk. So that's where there can be some hindrance. And that's what I saw with my mediumship circle, is that like every time someone came through, they'd be like, oh, it must be this person based off of what I already know about this person, instead of allowing new stuff to come in. another part of this too is that every medium, every reader is going to have different strengths and weaknesses and things that we pick up on that are different. So even if I connected with your grandma, she might come through and talk about completely different stuff than that medium. Or intuitively, I might be a match for some information and another medium is a match for different information. So it doesn't hurt also seeing who you resonate and going around to other people, because once people are reputable in the space and evidential and will be consistent with the information, you can't really go wrong with any of us, but you might get different facets of the whole through all of us.
And that's so cool. Like you always talk about, of course, our spiritual gifts and our spiritual connections are going to be unique, just like we are all unique. And so cool to lean into that and not try and force and be like, well, Taylor is super tapped into her clairsentience, so I should be too. But allowing, we had Emily, the baby medium, on, and she's really focused on connecting to spirit babies, which just was the calling that she found. So, like, just trusting in your unique gifts, your unique connection. And then as someone sitting with mediums and intuitives, knowing that, like, oh, I could have this experience with this person and someone else would offer me something different. And like, what a cool thing then to know that you could get all sorts of different information and connections with different people.
Yeah, it's really fun. And like I said, at a certain point, once somebody's developed and can reliably connect and bring through accurate evidential information, you can't go wrong with going back to them or exploring a different facet. Just whatever, that's a good opportunity for you to trust your own intuition.
So cool.
Yeah. Let's do one last one.
Okay, this is a question from Chelsea. Hi, Taylor and Claire. A resounding yes to a solo entitlement episode. I have had awareness of my entitlement for several years, but it has been in my shadow a long time, so it's been difficult to integrate. I am better about owning it from a place of, I want what I want, and that's okay. But as a child was really put down or punished for wanting or receiving from others, and often called a spoiled brat by my mother. This theme is still lingering, and when I find myself in moments of disappointment due to my excited expectations not being met, entitlement, I guess, it is incredibly difficult not to go down a shame spiral. This spring, I had a huge breakthrough around how I've been living in victim consciousness, and I finally saw an opportunity for how to change my behavior to break the pattern. I'm hoping to experience a similar breakthrough around this entitlement shadow I've carried for so many decades. Thanks for all you do. Even as I try to consume less information overall to quiet the noise, Magic Hour remains one of my must listens. Chelsea.
Thank you for this, Chelsea. And yeah, this is such a layered and interesting question. And as someone who has struggled with entitlement as well, I talk about the energetics of it a lot in the November listener question episode as well. But another message that came through to me about entitlement is waiting for something outside of us to allow ourselves to feel peace. And I think that that is really interesting because it's like, what the heck? I want this thing. Where is it? I feel entitled to it. And because I'm not getting it, I feel bitter and resentful. And so it's like this conditional outside thing that we're waiting to receive to feel contentment and peace in the present moment. So it feels very layered to me based off of everything that you said. And a deep level of this feels ancestral to me because when we are being shamed by a parent for something, it usually shows that they have their own shadowy relationship to it that they inherited and has been passed down. So even just your mom calling you a spoiled brat and having harsh opinions about you wanting things, that's a really interesting puzzle piece because what was your mom's relationship to her mom or getting her needs met or receiving? Because, yes, there might be a layer of entitlement here of like expecting things from life and feeling bitter and disappointed when you don't get them instead of being in the present moment of trust and openness and everything we talked about in the November listener questions. But to me, it sounds more like an epigenetic wound and a witch wound around feeling safe to have desire, feeling safe to have high expectations for your life. Like, I think that there's a shade of difference between standards and entitlement. And the difference is with standards, you're honoring what's a no for you that leaves more space for a yes. And with entitlement, you're not looking at anything that's in your control and waiting for something outside of yourself to change to feel peace and contentment. So I think that there's a little bit of a differentiation there. So I would actually go to some more ancestral work around this and like, what is your mom's relationship to receiving? What's your mom's relationship to desire? What is your mom's relationship to feeling like her needs are taken care of? And when it's hysterical, it's historical, they say. So if your mom had a really strong reaction to you receiving, like I'm saying, I think that connects in there. So I think that even calling it an entitlement shadow to me feels rooted in the shame that your mom programmed into your consciousness. And as women, our mother's voice becomes our inner voice in a big way. And so I think even you calling it a entitlement shadow, I don't think that it is an entitlement shadow. I think that it's more feeling shamed by having standards or desires, inner child wound than a shadow. I think language is like so important, and nothing that you're saying to me feels entitled. It's okay to be excited and want things and to have high standards and to express your desires. And historically, that hasn't felt safe. You know, my definition of self sacrifice is the purposeful ignoring of intuition. And a lot of moms ignore their intuition and give up on themselves and self sacrifice and then expect their daughters to do the same. So I think entitlement, as you say it to me, sounds more in alignment with being called a spoiled brat than the truth of what your energy from this question is really giving. So I think that there's something here about detangling your mom's voice from your own voice, giving yourself permission to have high standards. But, you know, even high standards, there's like two different vibrations. One is self worth and respect, and the other is control. So I feel like from self worth and respect, it's like, yeah, I want fun and joy, abundance, pleasure, excitement. And I'm holding myself open to that until it finds me in the present moment in a way that feels like a full body yes. And then the shadow side is like, I'm saying no to everything and ruling everything out and only want that XYZ thing to look this way and this timing. And that's the only thing that will make me feel happy and joyful. And that's where entitlement and victim mode and control and dysregulation kind of fall into that category. So I think that you might be dancing in between the two categories and take what resonates with you and leave the rest. But I think the entitlement piece of it to me is more of not changing anything about yourself and waiting for something in the future to feel happiness. But it sounds like you're doing so much work on yourself. You're like, I'm working on my victimization and I'm healing these shadows and I'm doing these things. And to me, nothing of that reeks of entitlement. It reeks of self judgment tied to your mom's voice interwoven with your own inner voice and probably her mom too.
I really resonate with that. I think you're right. And, you know, I think life is this weird dance of wanting things and driving towards those things, and also finding ways to feel joy and fulfillment in the present moment before we receive those things. And I definitely struggle with that dance, you know, because there's many things that I still long for and want and am hoping to come into my life and working towards. And it can be hard then to not feel in the present moment like I'm wanting some other version of now, or to feel wrong for not just being happy and satisfied with the present moment. Like everything in life, it's this balance of dualities and this balance of desire and contentment. And I think a big barometer that can help with our desires and wants is just really sitting with what feels authentic to us and what about this thing that we're desiring, like what does it give to us? What core need or what experience will it give to us? For instance, I want more opportunities to do my creativity. And I know that that's coming from a good, authentic place and not just one of like ego, of wanting to be seen or receiving accolades. Because I've really sat with it and I know that when I'm creative, it fills me with so much joy, this like juicy spark, and lights me up. And so I know that wanting more of that comes from my authenticity, from my spark wanting to expand and express itself to its fullest. So I then can sit in the trust that that is not a bad want. That is a want that is in alignment with my soul's journey, and wanting it isn't wrong. And then I think we can get into like victim consciousness when we get super sucked into like, but why don't I have it now? And I need it now to be happy. And it's the only thing that will bring me happiness. I think that's when it can start to get a little bit into the entitlement. How dare the universe not be giving it to me now, versus trusting like I'm being led to this thing. It feels like a core desire. And how can I follow the path of it leading me? How can I find my way to it in the best of my ability and trust that it's coming because I'm moving towards it and because it truly is right for me?
Yeah, so well said and so relatable. And I think it kind of comes back to what we were talking about in the beginning about just being in ready position, being in ready position to co-create with the present moment for what is in your power for the highest good. And that doesn't mean you don't want to have a certain outcome, or there might not be like visions or dreams or things like that. But that's again taking you out of the present moment. And that's that like duality and that balance. So it's like, I think even how we talk about New Year's resolutions, which we were talking about in the beginning, instead of being like, from this place of this year, I want to make XYZ amount of money. I want this opportunity to come through. I want to get this publishing deal. I want this exact thing to happen or to manifest this exact thing. And instead saying, this is my intention. I want true love. I want friendship and community. I want health, whatever it is. And then being in ready position to co create that in the present moment. You might be mistaking having dreams as entitlement or a dead end frequency, but I don't think that's true. I think you can have the dreams, but then realize and know this is a co-creation. We're not in control, and come back into ready position to do your best in the present moment. And when you're in ready position, then everything that comes that's a dream and a goal is like a bonus. It might not come in the exact way that you planned. It might come in a different direction, but it's just a bonus when it does come, when you do the work to be able to be present and in trust in the present moment. And it kind of brings me to the sixth house, 12th house polarity in astrology. The sixth house is the house of like productivity, routine, organization, and like what we do every day for health, for career, and even like kind of nervous system work. Our structures, our systems, and routines. And healthy relationship to the sixth house is then what leads to healthy 12th house energy, which is our dreams and our bigger picture. And when one is unhealed, the other one is unhealed. So if we're so lost in being productive every single day, being in perfectionism and getting everything on our checklist down, we can forget the bigger picture of like, what is this all for? And, the 12th house is also spirituality, subconscious health, but dreams as well. And so when we're so in sixth house, we can build all the structures and feel safe in the physical world, but lose sight of like the bigger picture in the dream. Whereas when we're so in the 12th house without the sixth house, we have these big dreams and we're floating in a cloud, not actually doing anything or having the systems and organizations to build them. And so, just like Claire said, like everything is about duality and balance. And the zodiac wheel really stresses that. So when we're in ready position, that's like the sixth house being fleshed out. We're taking care of our health. We're taking care of our mental health. We're rewiring our nervous system. We're creating structures to support ourselves. And then inspiration, spirituality, downloads from our guides, visions, dreams, bigger picture things flow to us. And we've done the structural work to support ourselves to co create with them. So I think when we flesh out that sixth house, the Virgo Pisces polarity, when we flesh out the Virgo, which is a lot of this healing work that we're doing on ourselves and creating our structures and doing the best with what we can control in the present moment, then the divine is basically getting in a fully furnished race car and can press go and drive forward with the dreams. So I think that there's a little bit of a connection there to like the 6th, 12th house polarity. And it's really interesting because we're so judgmental and we can be so like puritanical about wants and dreams and desires. And it's like, no, let life be exciting and juicy and hold yourself to high standards. That's not the same thing as entitlement. And I think that no part of the zodiac wheel is shameful and it encompasses every part of the human experience. It's just being a human. And so if you're seeing dreams coming up and feeling like, am I entitled? Am I dreaming too big? I would look at that sixth house, 12th house polarity and see what signs rule those and where there might be a way to relate to those archetypes in a more powerful way too.
Yeah, I love that. That's such a good example. And you can feel when you're doing that spiritual work, how much more, and like doing the work on yourself and have the nervous system regulation and have the things in place to support you, how much more in flow you are, of course, and how much more ready you are for those dreams and desires. And yeah, it's so funny. I mean, even our self confidence, I feel like sometimes we'll feel like we can't be like, I'm amazing, like we have to be like, oh, I'm just okay, as if to like, shield others or not to seem some certain way. But I think, again, when it's coming from your like truest desires, like there's this card I love in one of my decks, and it says, expect nothing less than your most precious dreams. And I just love that because that's not expecting like a Mercedes and a mansion and I mean, maybe those are your most precious dreams. And so no shade if they are, but just meaning like our most precious dreams are sacred. They came with us for a reason. It's part of our soul's journey to pursue and embody them. And it is your right and your gift to want and desire them. And I think the more we can embrace that, the more we can support ourselves, even if people around us maybe aren't ready to support that and are still living in their self judgment or their feelings of needing to be in that lack or struggle. Like, you give yourself such a beautiful gift to say yes to what you deeply desire.
Yeah, so true. And I also just feel called to share that, like, this dynamic with her mom also brings me to the Leo Aquarius polarity. And I just want to talk about it too, because Leo is like, I'm a star and I'm going to shine. And I do want these things from life. And I'm passionate and I'm heart led and I have hobbies and I'm creative. And like, look at me roar. And when we can embody that part of ourselves, that's not entitlement. Like that's us just honoring, like, we are stars. We're stars, kid. And, that is just a part of our psyche that's like, it's your main character energy, which we all deserve to have. It doesn't mean that's the only part of our like cocktail of consciousness, but it is a beautiful part. And sometimes, and I would wonder if your mom's birth chart maybe has some shadowy Leo stuff in it, where it's like she didn't feel like she could shine or follow her heart or follow her passions. But when we have healthy Leo energy, it leads us to healthy Aquarius energy, which is hope and manifestation, how we're supposed to be of service, friendship and community, helping the world at large, humanitarianism. So when we're disconnected from that like main character, heart-led, passionate hobbies, inner child, shining bright, when that's not encouraged in us, then we have a shadowy relationship to what are we manifesting? What do we hope for? What are our wishes? How can we be of service to the world in a bigger way? And we can sometimes attract the wrong friendships and community because of that, because we're not connected to our heart. So I also just want to point out that polarity because it feels like there might be a little shadow for you around Leo energy or inherited Leo wounds from your mom. And I would just encourage you to look into how you can embody your Leo without feeling shame around it and what house Leo rules for you in the birth chart.
Yes. Interesting for me as well because I am an Aquarius sun and a Leo rising.
Yes.
And I relate so deeply to both of those energies. And yeah, we all have space to embrace that in ourselves. And I think maybe it's Marianne Williamson who has that beautiful quote about like, who are you to hide your light under a rock? Like, who are you to not shine? I'm so butchering it, but shine brightly and give your gifts to the world. That is what we're here to do. And the more we can support ourselves in doing it, the more we give permission to others to do it. And what a joyful world to live in where all of us are shining in our most authentic vibration, giving our authentic gifts to the world. Like that is the future. That is the world I want to create.
Yeah, absolutely. And every desire that we have, the elements of it that are out of our power, like the timing or the how or the level, whatever, those things out of our control are basically just an opportunity, coming back to that word, to relate to trust and the present moment and what is in your control in a more powerful way here and now. And what other option do we really have other than hoping and waiting for the future? And we have so much more power than that in the present moment.
Yeah, it's such a beautiful thing to anchor back into. What can we do in this present moment? How can we trust and take aligned action towards those things that we desire while trusting that their timeline is divine and we're on our path?
Yeah, absolutely. So, thank you guys so much for these questions. Before we transition into sitting with spirit, I do want to say the format for season 3 is going to be a little different than season 2. Oh, and I also will take this opportunity to let you know when we're coming back. So, this is our last episode for season 2. And then season 3 will start Wednesday, January 14th. So, we're going on a little bit of a holiday break. I hope you guys enjoy your holiday. And then when we come back, the January intro episode to season 3 will be this same listener question format. But then starting February onward, we're going to be doing a different format where we still might answer a listener question. I'm still figuring that out, but it might just be one. And then I'm going to be doing like an energy reading for the month ahead and talking about more of like the astrology and the energy for the month. So it just felt like time for a little bit of a change. And I'm excited about that. So, this episode and the January listener questions episode will be the two that we have left. So, if you have listener questions, please email them to contact@magichourpod.com. And hopefully, we can tackle them in the January listener questions episode. Thank you guys so much for all the support during season 2.
Yes, thank you so much for your questions. It's been so wonderful to explore these ideas and topics, and hopefully it's been helpful. It's helped me, so I'm sure it's helped you guys as well. And yeah, I'm excited for the new version in season 3 and all that is coming in season 3. I'm so excited.
Yes, we already have all the episodes planned throughout March, and I just showed Claire what they are, and we're both really excited about them.
Yes, it's going to be an amazing new season. So get ready.
Get ready and use this time to catch up on the episodes that you still need to listen to. And let's transition now to sitting with spirit. Welcome back to Sitting with Spirit, my loves, the part of the podcast where I sit with our angels, our guides, our loved ones in the spirit world, give the messages for the collective. As always, take what resonates, leave the rest. And if you know somebody who could benefit from the messages, please send this their way. So, the energy right now feels really big. And part of the reason is because this is the final sitting with spirit for season 2. And so I feel like the nature of the messages coming through are meant to hold us a little. It's almost like the message for the month of this break. And the very first thing that I saw was like this beautiful emerald green light, and I felt archangel presences wanting to come through. And I don't always work with archangels, so it's interesting when they come through. And I felt Archangel Raphael and just this deep healing emerald light. And it feels like we're at just an interesting, like this month from December to January that we're on break. It just feels like we're in this very fertile, transformative moment. And I feel a deep need to rest, a deep emphasis on healing, and just you can even meditate on just Archangel Raphael's healing emerald light. And that feels very relevant, like not judging yourself for needing to rest, not judging yourself if you're showing up this holiday season in a less energized way, like just taking care of yourself. And then I also saw Archangel Haniel coming through, which is the archangel connected to turquoise light. And I just saw this like deep healing again, but on a soul level. Archangel Haniel is all about intuition, soul level lessons, and healing of the spirit. where Archangel Raphael is healing of the mind and body. And so these two archangels are coming through to really emphasize the way that we're being held by the angelic realm through this time of death and rebirth and transition. And through like the most shadowy, darkest phase of the year that can really be challenging for a lot of people. And it feels like there is just a lot of layers to the energy right now of like deep shedding and release. I'm seeing scissors covered in shadow, and it gives me this feeling of like endings that feel scary, saying goodbye to people, relationships, jobs, patterns, thoughts, ways of being that feel really scary to let go of, or that there's shadow around cord cutting. So we are in a 9 year, 2025 is a 9 year. And I feel like that really goes hand in hand with these endings that are coming up. Endings, old ways of doing things, releasing things that we have been relating to from scarcity or powerlessness, and saying, I don't know what comes next. I might not know what's going to fill this space, but I know what isn't working. And I'm going to honor that no. And so through this moment of crossroads, of change, of up level, of shedding, of growth, just know that you're being so held. Trust your intuition through it and feel into what you know is not working. And know that even if you can commit to that knowledge, that even if it's like a job and you can't leave it right away, just committing to the knowledge of what isn't working will shift what your angels can put in your path, and you'll co create with it in a different way than if you don't admit what needs to go from your life. And so another message that I got around the scissors in shadow and the cord cutting feels like there's two patterns of energy that they really want to highlight for a part of what we're releasing. One of them is taking our pain, our imbalances, our struggles, our healing work, the ways that we're feeling out of harmony or like we're not really co creating on our highest timeline, taking the shame out of that, not allowing that to feel like some sort of personal failure. This isn't to say that we don't have personal power over our circumstances, but just like our manifestations are a co-creation, so is our wounding and our pain and our trauma. And sometimes we just have to honor our inner child and the pieces of us that are doing the best with what we can and feeling all of the feelings. And there's a level of societal, social layers that very much in a real way contribute to how we're doing and our healing. And so it's not to take the focus off of what's in our power and what we can do in the present moment to move forward, but your angels really want you to cut ties to feeling shame around your healing journey and feeling like when emotions come up, pain comes up, grief comes up, frustration over where you are, frustration over timing, not allowing shame as an indication of like some sort of personal failure to be a frequency that you believe as truth. It feels like it's trying to protect you in some way. I think it's so interesting how shame almost feels like an outgrown protector tied to the witch wound. Like it doesn't want us to shine too brightly. It doesn't feel safe to be seen or heard or vulnerable or inconvenient. And so it feels like something that has been really passed down. And I really do feel like our generation of people listening to this, we are here to generationally progress consciousness by relating to shame in a different way and no longer taking everything so personal, like it's only our fault, and really seeing the bigger patterns here and realizing that shame is just a filter of judgment. It's not really the truth. And as I've said before, shame is the fire on the witch's pyre. And we are our own executioner and witch hunter because of all that's been internalized and passed down epigenetically. And I really feel like when you notice shame for your pain or humanity coming up, it's a permission slip or an opportunity for you to love yourself in a deeper way, for you to accept yourself in a deeper way, for you to have permission for your humanity in a deeper way, to give yourself permission to be human. And maybe that's exactly what your inner child needed all along. The next thing that I feel tied to the scissors in shadow is a pattern of worrying over the future. And I know that obviously we're humans and we have to survive, and there's very real, survival level things tied to this. And that's not really what I'm talking about here. Every message that I give on Magic Hour is under the assumption that your basic human survival needs are met. And if they're not, the self actualization and spiritual stuff and self betterment on a healing journey or relating to things more powerfully, it's still applicable, but not in the same way as if you do not have food or clothing or shelter. So just take every message I say within that context. The next thing that wants to be cut is this pattern that I feel of the mind in a non intentional way gravitating towards the what ifs about the future. And it almost feels like a habit at this point. It feels like something from a previous version of self, an old way of relating to things that is keeping you from being present with what's in your control in the most powerful way. It's sometimes so hard for me to describe the feeling, but it brought me up to the crown chakra. And it feels like there's almost this like masochistic impulse to go there. And I know that our higher self isn't trying to be masochistic or hurt ourselves, but it feels like there's some wounded part of our consciousness tied to dysregulation that's like, I'm ready for my fix. I'm ready for my stress. What would I do if I didn't have this fear? What would I do if I didn't have this habit of rumination? What would I do if I didn't have this chronic connection to worrying about the future? And on a deep level, your body is like, we wouldn't be safe if we didn't have this. So go on and take your fix. But I do feel like moving into 2026, this is something that wants to be released. It's like when you catch yourself ruminating about the future, about worst case scenario thinking about the future, I almost feel like this wild, wild west cowgirl feeling of like, F it. And that doesn't mean that your angels are telling you to be reckless, but I do feel like there's a certain level of making peace with whatever happens, I will be ready. Sort of like I was talking about in the intro. Instead of ruminating on what could come in the future or what might not, or what might happen or what might not, there's just almost this badass feeling I get of like, let it. Okay. I'm not in control of the future. I'm draining my energy worrying about the future. I'm co creating with bitterness and cynicism about the future. And what if you just dare to say, I'm safe here and now? I accept that what will be will be. I'll handle it when it gets there. And I'm going to feel safe enough to not continually shift focus to the past or the future. How can I come back to deeper insight, co creation, and honoring what my heart is asking for here and now? So, those are two layers to patterns energetically. And it's almost like it's an addiction to thinking about the future, is the way it felt to me. It just feels like an uncomfortable comfort zone of going back to that place. And it's interesting because even as I tuned into that, it felt like there was a splice in consciousness where the way that pattern of ruminating about the future used to give you that nervous system fix of like stress feels like it's not hitting the same way. Feels like you're too awake at this point, and that there's a way that as you're going there in this old patterned way, like you're not believing it in the same way. You're not absorbing it in the same way. The victim consciousness doesn't hit quite right. And you're not really believing it as truth because you've come so far in your healing journey. So there's just this sense of, now how can you really let it go? And consciously, when you notice that you're going there to the future, do something to really ground yourself back to the here and now and tell that inner villain voice and that part of you that's ruminating, okay, what will be, will be. And I trust myself enough to meet it when it does or doesn't happen. And how many times has fear lied to us? That being said, this feels like a deep moment. It feels like a shadowy moment. I feel a lot of like integration and rest is needed, just a lot of self care. It's just very, very fertile ground energetically. And I pulled a tarot card for what they want you to know. And again, feels bigger to me than just this week. It feels like this month. And I pulled the star. And I was so grateful when I pulled the star. The star is the card of guiding light, divine energy, miracles, faith, hope, inspiration. And when I pulled the star, the star card comes after the tower. The tower is when everything falls apart, when all of the unsteady foundations, all of the walls with mold in it come tumbling down because they need to, because they weren't built on solid foundations. It's the tower moment is where we feel sometimes at a rock bottom, where we feel lost, where old structures are crumbling. And I think that this 9 year collectively, this year of the snake, of shedding of the snake skin, has had a lot of that energy for people, a lot of crumbling foundations, a lot of release, a lot of letting go, a lot of relating to things in a completely different way. And this card is so beautiful because it's the light at the end of the storm. It is looking back up, away from the rubble and the destruction, and up to the sky, up to the divine guiding light, to finding our true north, which is really right there in our heart, listening to what our heart is asking of us and following it, even if it feels scary and foreign. And it's this reclamation of faith and light after a really dark chapter. And it just felt so beautiful and hopeful to pull this card. And it just really made me feel like we are starting to see glimpses of why we've been going through what we've been going through. We're starting to see ways that it will be okay and that we're growing, and the silver linings and the ways that we're supported. And so yeah, it's a really powerful moment, and anytime I pull a major arcana card, it shows that it is a defining life moment, that there is something important about this time. So, going into the mediumship now, I felt like I had a grandmother connected to the father's side of the family stepping in, and I felt like she had an "if" at the end of her name, like Judith or Meredith, something like that. And I felt like she would have worn a lot of red and bright colors. She was really adamant about that. And I feel like she would have also really liked to sew and crochet. And I feel like she would have even made her own clothes. And I was seeing these like red and pink stitched things. She felt very tall and strong and confident to me. And I got this feeling of her being really quirky, her being really funny, like truly loving herself in a deep way. And it's so interesting because I connect with a lot of grandparents all the time. And it's kind of rare to find a grandparent that's like, I truly loved myself. So I really love that about her. And I got this feeling that she kind of, without apology, marched to the beat of her own drum. And she didn't really feel the need to be understood or validated by other people because she met that need in herself. She was so like masterful at being authentic and being happy with the little things and following her joy that it felt like everybody else just respected her and honored her back because she was so solid in who she was. And it feels like she brought a lot of love and joy to her family. And her message is a very simple one. It's when you honor your heart and you do not budge on those boundaries of honoring your heart and your power and what you know you deserve, other people will fall in line. Other people will honor it too. I feel like she had sons, and I feel like her husband and her sons might not have always understood her, but they loved her and they respected her because she understood herself. And she was so grounded in herself. And she wasn't looking for permission from them. She wasn't looking for acceptance from them. She gave herself acceptance. She gave herself permission. She gave herself validation. And from that unshakable center, her family members fell in line and they honored her and they supported her. And it also gave them permission to be their authentic self. So when you honor your heart, when you listen to yourself without apology, other people will too. Because if they don't, when you're in that place of meeting your need, it's not asking for them to. It's this is the truth of who I am. This is what I need. Can you meet me here or not? And the other part of her message is she wants people to wear more colors. She's so sad about how like beige and gray and everything the world is these days. And I really feel like she would have loved color and bright colors and wearing a lot of bright colors, especially red. And so this is just really saying in this moment, honor yourself, kind of tying back to that message of feeling shame over like your timing or your manifestations or your healing journey or feeling like you should. When you're feeling like you should be somewhere that you're not, your ego has taken over, which gives you an opportunity to love yourself a little more, step out of ego a little more, and connect back to the truth of your soul a little more. And when you're in that unshakable place where shame doesn't have its hand on you, and you're in the present moment and you're doing the best with what you can and honoring yourself, everyone around you will respond to your energy in a different way. And that's really what she's highlighting there. When you meet those heart needs for yourself, everybody else will understand and connect with that energy in a different way than when you seek approval from them or permission from them. So I just loved connecting with her. She kept it short and sweet. And I feel like she would have been the type of woman to just really say it how it is. And I really enjoyed connecting with her. So I hope that these messages are helpful. I will really miss you guys over the break. I so need a break, but that doesn't mean I won't miss you. And, recording Magic Hour is such a light in my day. So I will be connected with you guys in the new year. I'll be opening up another round of Becoming the Oracle, and I have other really exciting announcements and projects up my sleeve that I'm taking this holiday break to really express and sit with and work on and allow to unfold in a deeper way. So I'm wishing you all a magical and restful and beautiful break, and we will see you in the new year. Much love. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Magic Hour podcast. We are so happy you're here. I absolutely love to connect with you all on Instagram at angels_and_amethyst. I love to get your thoughts on each episode, and I get so excited to get your emails to contact@magichourpod.com. Make sure you're subscribing to Magic Hour so you never miss a new episode in your inbox. We have so many amazing guests right around the corner as always. Please make sure to send your 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts and Spotify to contact@magichourpod.com, and we'll enter you into an angel reading giveaway with me, which is just my favorite thing, to get to connect with the Hummingbird community in that way. You get a bonus entry if you also send a screenshot of your YouTube subscription, and also a screenshot of sharing us on your story and tagging us at Magic Hour Podcast on Instagram. The next giveaway will happen when we hit 288 5-star reviews on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. We so appreciate you sharing the podcast with other magical people, and it really helps us keep this project alive. To learn more about me, my work, to book a reading with me, to take a workshop, please visit angelsandamethyst.com. And remember, you are magic.